The story of the Bitter Tasco is one of those deliciously tragic automotive what-ifs, the kind that makes you sigh, pour a drink and say, we could have had this 30 years ago. Because before Chevrolet stunned the world with the mid-engine Corvette C8, before the idea of an American supercar with an engine behind your head became a reality, a small German outfit led by a stubborn ex-racing driver named Erich Bitter had already tried it. And not just with any engine. This one was meant to be powered by the very same V10 that would soon make the Dodge Viper a cultural icon. But to appreciate how absurd this was, you have to remember that in the early 1990s, mid-engine cars were still the exotic preserve of Europe's most dramatic supercar builders. Ferrari, Lamborghini and the occasional wild Brit from Norfolk were perfecting the recipe. Engine in the middle, short wheelbase, pointy nose, and handling so sharp it could decapitate you if you sneezed mid-corner. Meanwhile, America was still putting enormous V8s into the front, preferably attached to the longest bonnet known to mankind. It was loud, it was brash, and it worked, but it wasn't exactly sophisticated. And then, in 1991, Erich Bitter, former racer, part-time visionary, and full-time lunatic, decided he could do better. Bitter had made a modest name for himself through the 1970s and 80s with his Grand Tourers, the CD and the SC. Both cars were essentially rebodied Opels with Italian flair and American reliability. The kind of machines that looked like a Maserati but started every morning like a Chevrolet. They were handsome, comfortable and well made. But by the late 80s, the market for expensive hand-built coupes was shrinking. Bitter needed something bold, something outrageous, and nothing said outrageous quite like putting an American V10 behind the driver. The project that emerged from this madness was the Bitter Tasco, a car that in spirit wanted to be Germany's answer to the Ferrari Testarossa, but with Detroit muscle doing the heavy lifting. Bitter didn't have a factory capable of developing a mid-engine supercar, so he formed an alliance of misfits to help him make it happen. Opel offered design support, AAC brought their fabrication and engineering expertise, and somewhere in the background Chrysler quietly let a pre-production Viper engine slip through the back door. That engine, an 8-litre 90-degree V10 block derived from Chrysler's LA V8, tuned by Lamborghini engineers, was a beast. In early Viper form, it made around 400 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque. But more importantly, it was brutal, mechanical and gloriously unsophisticated. Exactly the kind of heart a German coach builder would never think to use. Bitter saw an opportunity. A European chassis with American muscle, blending refinement and brute force. The car structure was a bespoke tubular space frame, not unlike what Lotus or the Tomaso might have built, with the V10 slung midship, sending power to the rear wheels through a manual gearbox. The proportions were textbook supercar, low, wide, with an impossibly long deck over the engine bay. The roof was modular, removable parts that could turn it from a coupe to a Targa to an open-top GT. And the doors were made of fiberglass and hinged upward in gullwing fashion. The styling was part futuristic, part oddball, but technically the concept was sound. And underneath all the show car drama, there was real thought in the layout. The space frame construction gave it stiffness and kept the weight around 1,500 kilograms, which is remarkably low for something housing a massive cast iron V10 engine. With weight distribution centered just behind the driver, it promised traction and balance that American front-engine bruisers could only dream of. Bitter wanted it to drive like a Ferrari 512 TR, but with the dependability of a Dodge. On paper, it made sense, but in reality, it was a logistical nightmare. Bitter wasn't Ferrari. He didn't have an army of engineers or a test track in Maranello. What he had was a small workshop, a few willing partners, and an economy about to fall off a cliff. Funding came from a Japanese investment group called Fedco, who were also involved with spice engineering in Formula 1. The plan was ambitious. MGA Developments in Coventry, the same people who had built the chassis for race cars, would turn Bitter's concept into a running prototype, and production would follow once investors saw what it could do. But as with most grand automotive dreams, the money ran out long before the magic could happen. Fedco's financial position collapsed in 1992, and the Tasco was left stranded as a half-finished prototype. The version that appeared at the 1991 Frankfurt Auto Show wasn't even a runner. It looked the part, sleek, sculpted and vaguely menacing, but underneath the skin there was no engine, no suspension and barely a working interior. It was a prop, not a prototype. Even if the finances had held, Bitter faced enormous practical hurdles. The modular roof system with complex panel geometry would have costed a fortune to engineer for production. The gull-wing doors added weight and structural challenges. The V10 engine, still technically Chrysler's property, wasn't exactly available off the shelf, and with the early 90s recession tightening every corporate purse, the idea of a boutique German-American supercar costing the equivalent of a small yacht was a tough sell. And so, the Tasco became yet another footnote in automotive history, one of those almost cars that looked into the future but never quite made it there. But the Tasco didn't vanish entirely. The original prototype, once green and later repainted metallic blue, ended up in the Coventry Transport Museum in the UK, where it still stands today, a static reminder of ambition outpacing reality. A second unfinished chassis was sold privately, supposedly with plans to complete it using the V10 engine, but its trail went cold. No verified records show that it ever turned a wheel under its own power. And yet, for all of its flaws, the Tasco deserves a moment of respect. It was an idea decades ahead of its time, a European-built, American-powered mid-engine Grand Tourer, long before GM moved the Corvette's engine behind the driver, before Dodge even thought of using the Viper's V10 for anything other than terrifying small animals. Bitter had seen the potential. He just didn't have the means to make it real. In hindsight, it's hard not to feel admiration for Bitter's stubbornness. He wasn't trying to copy Ferrari or Lamborghini, he was trying to build a better kind of GT, one that married German precision with American power. It was a bold idea, and like most bold ideas, it didn't survive the accountants. But there's a poetic irony to it all. 3 decades later, Chevrolet finally did what Bitter attempted. They built a mid-engined American performance car with global aspirations. And when the C8 Corvette arrived, the world applauded its brilliance. If you squint a little, you can almost see the ghost of the Tasco hiding somewhere in that lineage. A reminder that sometimes the future shows up early. It just takes a while for everybody else to catch up. Because the Bitter Tasco wasn't a failure in spirit. It was proof that vision alone isn't enough to make a great car. You also need timing, luck, and more than one investor who isn't going to go bankrupt. But yeah, at the end of this video, please let me know what you guys thought of the video, what do you guys think of the car, and if you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you guys did like this video, you'll most probably enjoy most of my other stuff, so just go through my channel, see if there's someone else I like, or check you guys in the next one. Cheers,